Recharging shields.
Are you serious? The stupid legend is broken!
For those of you watching this in the year 2023 and onward, you're probably wondering what you just saw. No, this clip isn't edited, and your eyes didn't deceive you. This player is healing and gets hit with a flashbang of death. But this is Apex Legends, and they've never added a flash grenade into the game. Well, that's because this isn't an item. It's a Legends ability. Seers. 2 years ago, Seer was released, and for 2 years, he's been the one and the only Spider-Man. Dominated the meta. He clears your favorite legend. Had the most overpowered launch in Apex history, period. Consistently being at the top of every tier list video, and when he's used in tournaments, he's finishing top 3 in pick rates. Seer has easily and undoubtedly made his impact on the Apex community in such a short time. However, 2 years in the gaming world is damn near an eternity. The Seer matter is one that seemingly gets shut down, but always persists. And in this video, you're gonna see that Seer never really fell off. And honestly, despite what his pick rate and usage says, I think the Seer matter is still here, and it might be here to stay. But today I'm gonna be going over the history of this character and their entanglement in the meta, the buffs, the nerfs, the good, the bad, and the downright atrocity that is Obi Edolasim. August 3rd, 2021. Seer was introduced. Born on the planet Boris, Seer was ostracized by society as he was cursed with blue eyes and blamed for destroying the moon as a baby because he had blue eyes. Anyway, being told he was an abomination his whole life and his planet being in turmoil because having a half-eaten cookie as a moon is pretty bad. So Seer decided to join the Apex games to bring attention and love to his home in hope that one day he'll be looked at as a savior. But that hasn't happened because Eduardo failed to hold up his end of the bargain and he was ripped apart on live television. But day one Seer is undoubtedly the strongest legend I think we have ever seen. Not Wraith, not Pathfinder, and not even day one Horizon could keep up with Seer on release. And in case you don't remember, or like me only played one game of season 10 and decided not to play for the rest of the season, here are his abilities. His passive Heart Seeker could sense enemies when ADSing up to 75 meters away. Today this is only 50 meters. But he didn't need to use a gun to be able to use their passive. Seer can be unarmed and still use his passive whilst running full speed. This was a passive, by the way. 24/7 mobile wall hacks with ridiculous range. For comparison, Crypto's drone, although constant, it has clear weaknesses. Crypto's drone needs line of sight to highlight enemies, and so it can't see through walls. His drone can also be destroyed, and his drone can only highlight enemies up to 30 meters. Wow. Outclassed in every category. Well, that's no surprise for crypto mates. Easily his strongest ability is tactical wall hacks, focus of attention. Its cast time was incredibly fast, and when hit with it, it not only revealed your position, but also gave the enemy team info on your current health and shield, interrupted you from healing, interrupted you from reviving, interrupted you from interacting like using respawn beacons. Oh yeah, damaged you, slowed you, silenced you, and of course, flashing your screen and blinding you to death. And his ultimate wall hacks, exhibit, which created a dome sensing any movement and gunfire within it for him and his team. This is one legend. Crypto needs to actually pilot his drone to get constant scans, and he can't even see the health bars. Meanwhile, Seer sending you to the gates of heaven. Prior to Seer's release, there were talks about Seer's questionable tactical, and the possibility of a visual stun like a flashbang. The community was getting ready to hold up the pitchforks, but developer Daniel Klein assured the community that Seer's tactical needed precise timing and aim to land, as akin to a sniper, because it was so narrow. Bro. Yeah, that was a lie. It's also important to note that Seer's main competition, Bloodhound, would get nerfed 3 months prior to the release of Seer. The dev stating in developer notes that 3 seconds was too oppressive. You couldn't make this stuff up. Now they release a legend with an 8-second scan, along with 6 other legends stuffed in there. The mission for Seer was definitely to cause a splash. And although Seer's capabilities were seen instantly, there was many in the community that still believed that Bloodhound was still better than Seer, believing that at higher levels of play, most pros already know what to do from just a basic scan, and the extra info that Seer gives was unnecessary. I'm just saying what was there at the time. Yes, these are real takes. Day one Seer, I can't honestly call him day one Seer because this didn't last for a day, not 2 days, or even 2 weeks. This version of Seer lasted 30 days, a whole month of flashbangs, until August 23rd, 2021. Seer would finally get his nerf, and hard. They delayed the center spikes for his targets on his passive, removed the center circle eclipse, stopped spikes from showing up beyond 75 meters, and reduced the field of view. For his tactical, they increased the delay on the detonation, removed the damage, removed the blinding effect, removed the screen shake effect, increased the slow of movement speed when holding, and for his ultimate, they increased the cooldown from 90 to 120 seconds. It was at 90 seconds. In comparison, Mirage's ultimate takes 60 seconds. 30-second difference between useless decoys and legitimate wall hacks. Who at Respawn signed off at this? But at this time in the game's lifespan, this was the norm. Release an OP character, then bring them back down with the other legends, until the next character release. And once Seer was taken care of, he fell all the way down to B tier. Yeah, I know, crazy. This is probably the lowest Seer's ever gotten. To be C, borderline B tier, that's the lowest he's ever been. But with how easy it was to dodge his tactical, the only times you would actually land your tactical would be when they're healing or reviving. Times when you already know their position and they're already locked in place. During this time, Bloodhound came back as the top scan legend in the game, mainly due to his faster cooldown and consistent scans. You have to remember, Seer's tac cooldown was longer, and because his cast time wasn't instant, there was a risk/reward factor to using it. One that most pros weren't willing to risk with thousands of dollars on the line. And in tournaments, Seer did have a really low pick rate. Like in the 2022 ALGS, Seer had a pick rate of 0. So yeah, Seer did die, but faster than most legends, he stepped right back up. And on December 7, 2021, in Season 12, 4 months after his haul of nerfs, Seer would get one singular buff, but that's all he needed. His tactical detonation time was decreased back to its initial value of 1.4. And by the end of the season, Seer was still at the bottom. He was at the bottom of all tier lists, hovering around the C to B tier category, with some even putting crypto over him, because of the stockpile of buffs that he would get in Season 12. Being able to throw his drone now and not need to go into it when needing to use his ultimate. But we'll talk about the tier listing in a minute. Seer, like the Tortoise, played the long game. For 3 straight seasons, there wasn't a single buff to any scan legend. But miraculously, in Season 14, Seer would unanimously become S tier. And this is what is fundamentally wrong with tier lists. They are often made in the first 2 days or weeks of the new season, with creators racing to pump the first one out. But when you have new legends, legend changes, weapon balancing, and map changes, tier list videos are ultimately theory crafting, using the pre-existing meta from the previous season and the feel for the game to make their judgments. So current tier lists can feel more like a popularity contest rather than who's actually good, with legends with low pick rates but high win rates looked at as weaker unless a pro player can put a spotlight on them. And that's what happened to Seer. From July 5th to July 19th of 2022, the Apex Legends Year 2 of the ALGS had concluded, with Seer finishing 4th in pick rates. Nowhere near the big dogs, but his potential was definitely revitalized. And so the community as a whole had to reevaluate how they saw Seer, labeling him as once broken with the worst pick rate in the game, asking for him to get a rework when he had already gotten a buff seasons ago. So yeah, most tier list videos are jokes. Seeing his resurgence at the tail end of Season 13 and his continued domination into what was officially called the Seer meta, and the height of the scan meta as a whole, with Seer leading the way and Crypto and Bloodhound as viable options in Seasons 14 and 15, until Respawn decided it was time to retool the 2 most dominant scan legends in the meta, nerfing Seer and Bloodhound. Giving Bloodhound the White Raven rework that he has now, although good, he's effectively having less scans than he would before. They reduced his full body scan time from 3 seconds to 1 second, removed the sped up cooldown rate of his tactical when using his ultimate. He overall has less scanning potential than he would before. For Seer, they nerfed the passive, but the main takeaway was no longer showing full body scans on his tactical, and his ultimate taking longer to charge, reducing the duration to 25 seconds, and a little bit of a delay when activating. So why such a huge nerf? My thought is, the first version of Seer was intended to draw a splash, as Respawn had known by this point that overpowered legends do much better than mediocre releases. But I'm guessing Respawn didn't know the can of worms that they were getting into when they decided to buff his tactical detonation. But even with the Season 16 class changes, Seer was still at the top, hovering around 2% alongside Catalyst. But again, this is actually really high for a legend with no movement and one that is primarily used in scrims. This is when the community felt Seer was truly the meta, being overpowered for such a long time that people almost forgot that he was considered useless for 3 seasons. But in Season 17, Respawn decided it was time to put Seer down for good, and they kinda sorta failed. Midway through the season during the Dress to Kill event, Seer would get a massive change. On June 20th, 2023, the range on Seer's passive was reduced from 75 to 50 meters. The initial heartbeat delay was significantly reduced. The range on his tactical was reduced from 75 to 60 meters. They increased the firing speed by 30%, but removed the heal cancel, the revive cancel, decreasing the scan time from 8 seconds to 2.5, but reintroducing the full body scans, making any enemy hit by it slowed for 2.5 seconds, and increasing the silence time from 1.7 to 10 seconds. They also reduced the throw range of his ultimate from 50 to 15 meters, removed the diamond scan marker when enemies are moving, so now it's only the footprints. The diamond still shows up, but only when the enemy shoots for 1.5 seconds. Yeah, this was huge. Of the original abilities Seer had with his tactical, he's only left with highlighting enemies and silencing them, but for longer. Because the new Seer felt like a new legend, or an old one to be specific. Revenant, the old one, and his silencing ability. It's kind of funny because the ability was hated because there was little to no counterplay. Once silenced, you were without your abilities for 20 seconds. So to take the ability and give it to Seer, an already powerful legend, and increasing his cast time, allowing him to interrupt your gameplay even more, is actually ridiculous. And this change was made during the brief period when both were still in the game, making Revenant feel even more redundant. Because the community looked at this as more of a rework and a slight buff rather than a nerf, with his pick rate rising over 5%, and it looked like Seer was here to stay. Until, at the start of Season 18, he just fell off. And no, not just in public matches, but in scrims too. Like in the most recent tournament, the Year 3 ALGS Championship Series, Seer finished with a 0.5% pick rate. And on the last day of the ALGS Finals, the day that would crown the eventual champions TSM, Seer had a pick rate of 0. Yes, with legends like Bloodhound, Crypto, and Fuse getting more picks than Seer, who just barely got more picks than Revenant. I'm not joking. This is actually disgusting to look at. Because how can a legend be so good, but none of the pros play him? You're probably thinking, it's the meta. He probably just isn't needed. But other scan legends like Bloodhound and Crypto are. Seer has some unique ability to just cruise under the radar despite what his gameplay would suggest. So don't be surprised when Season 19's tier list makes Seer out to be a mediocre B, even C tier legend. And I'm just waiting for Respawn to mess up and throw a little crumb Seer's way, to turn him back into the god that we all know he is. Because with Seer, there is no middle ground. It's either he's completely busted or people think he's completely useless. But in actuality, Seer has and always will be at the top of the meta. Because when you can't see him, he will always see you. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you want more Apex archives, check out this video. Until then, I'll see you decoys in another one. Be mighty.